Sometimes beracha, blessing, is withheld from us because of the way we speak, or because of the things we listen to, the way we deal with others. All of this concept just lingers on the idea of being sensitive to another. And v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, do unto others as you like to be done to yourself. The Torah tells us now one of the most famous verses in our entire Torah. It says as follows, chapter 19, verse 17. Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha. Don't hate your fellow in your heart. Hocheach tochiach et amitecha. Rather rebuke the individual if they've done something wrong and that's why you hate them. And the verse ends, Velo tisa alav het, and don't bear the individual sin on you. So let's translate and let's address one of the most obvious questions on this verse. Don't hate your fellow in your heart. Rather, if you've seen them do something wrong, and maybe that's why you're disliking them, because you're not allowed to hate anybody. Don't hold it inside. Approach the individual. Tell them, this is the way you should have done it. Rebuke them. Because if you don't, you are now bearing their sin as if it was yours. That's what the verse says. The Talmud and Masechet Baba Metzia, page 31, asks, all of our initial question, why is there a double terminology of rebuke? It should just say, don't hate your fellow, rebuke them so you don't bear the sin. Why does it say, hocheach tochiach? Rebuke, oh rebuke your fellow. One time's enough. Why twice? Talmud gives one answer and says, you know why? Because if you go to your fellow and rebuke them once and they don't accept it, rebuke them again and again. The Talmud says, even 100 times, never give up on a Jew. Come again and again. The Zera Shimshon takes a different approach. He gives another answer. And he says that sometimes, more often than not, when you reproach someone and rebuke someone over something, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to listen to you. You might have only ignited a spark for them to be aware what they're doing needs to be changed. But maybe the second or third or fourth time is finally when it's going to click and they're actually going to make that life-changing moment and do the proper thing. So the first time is very often not good enough. You might need to continue rebuking the individual until they actually understand how important it is what you're telling them to do. And then they'll actually do it. That's the need for the additional times to rebuke. He asks, very nice, sounds good. Why does the Torah say so? Why does it just say it in a double terminology? Let the Torah come out and say, rebuke over and over until it's needed. Why is it just doing it in such a hidden way, a metaphorical way of a double terminology? Just say it straight out. He quotes the Midrash that says something absolutely beautiful, and this is actually, as the Zera Shimshon explains, a barometer to know if your rebuke is coming from a good place and if it's successful or not. The Midrash says that any relationship that has love, yet there is no rebuke, is not authentic love. If you really love someone, you're going to rebuke them. You're going to help them better their ways. You'll call them out on their mishaps. The Talmud tells us the opposite. He says any rebuke that has no love or that does not promote love between the two is not a proper rebuke. And they work hand in hand. That means love is always accompanied with some aspect of rebuke. And rebuke is only when it promotes love and not hatred. You need both of those aspects for it to be a true and authentic rebuke and reproach. The Zera Shimshon says, that the way to know if your rebuke is working or not is have you distanced yourself now from the person you reproached, or have you gotten closer? If you created hatred and separation, you didn't get anywhere. If you caused closeness and love, you did a successful reproach and rebuke. Why is that? Because it all has an underlying message of honor and respect and love. But now, if you look at the individual and you think that they are not going to accept your rebuke, the Talmud says you're not allowed to rebuke the individual. If your rebuke is going to fall on deaf ears, don't say it. If you know it's too above the person, it's not in the person's league, don't even say it. On the opposite, if the person will accept it, and you have evaluated that you know the person well enough that they'll accept it, you have an obligation to say it. This is what our Torah is telling us. Hocheach tochiach, rebuke, oh rebuke. You need to do it many times over. You need to sometimes do it more than once. But know that you always need to do it sometimes in steps and increments. Don't give the whole rebuke. Don't verbally vomit on the individual all at once, the whole case, boom. Slowly ignite them, spark, slowly, step by step. But you have an obligation to do so. And you have an obligation to do so which will promote closeness, respect, and love, and not the opposite. If it will do the opposite, you are unfortunately not fulfilling your mitzvah of rebuking, and you're just going to do something wrong. You're going to push that Jew further away from what they're supposed to do. Whenever I talk about the concept of rebuke and reproaching someone, always comes in my head this concept of positive criticism. What if I have to give positive criticism to my child, to my spouse, to my coworker, to my employee? I want them to be a better individual. You want to know your barometer? You want to know to see if you are really doing something good. If they're really going to listen, will it promote closeness and love, or will it now start festering resentment and separation and maybe escalate to hatred? That's how you know if your criticism is criticism, where there's no place for it, or if it's positive criticism. Positive criticism is not only when you say it with a smile and you tell a person a couple praises and then you tell them something they're doing wrong. Is if you really afterwards see the person loves you more and appreciates it and was looking for that help. If not, there's no mitzvah in positive criticism. Something we can remind ourselves from this is, remember and remind yourself to always try to evaluate, is your positive criticism really positive, really helpful, really bringing the two, you and the other individual, closer and love, or the opposite?